Whether the team is performing clean or unsightly, we'll cover it all here on Washington Football Nightly. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, I think this season has gotten off to a start that many of us did not expect. Now, I don't know what you thought this team would be this season. Everyone's idea of what they thought this team would be was probably a little bit different. Some of us thought that this team would be, 7, 8, 9, 10 win team maybe. Some thought 11, 12 wins. Some thought this team was going to stink because the quarterback position hadn't been solved. We were all over the map as to what we thought this season was going to be. Now, this season is far from over, as I've stated, and I've done shows this week, or one in particular, that kind of lays out the fact that there's still, 11 games this season to be played, and this team could conceivably turn it around. Now, it's a long shot, but there's a path to Washington turning things around and being a competitive team and having a chance to compete for a playoff berth later on in the season. That said, everyone had their own view of what this season would be and what the start of this season would look like. If the season hasn't gone the way that you thought it was going to start, and obviously with the defense being as bad as it's been and really showing no signs of making market improvement, they've made some baby steps and taken some baby steps, I should say, the last couple of weeks, but we haven't seen that leap that we were looking for from the defense from year one with Jack Del Rio to year number 2. So with that said, I think there needs to be a recalibration of what you thought this season was going to be. Now, if you thought we were going to stink, then we're probably right on course for what you thought this season was going to be. But if you thought this season had a chance to be big, 12-5, 11-6, hell, even 10-7, which I thought was a bit of a stretch, but that was, if everything bounces our way, we stay relatively healthy, and one of these quarterbacks or both of them ball out for us, 10 wins was the ceiling that this team had. That's the way I viewed the season. So now with the 2-4 start, let me just tell you, I thought we were going to start 4-2. This was when the set schedule was about to get tough. I told you from weeks 3 through 8 was really going to be the determining factor as to whether we were going to have ourselves a season or not. And I felt like we needed to get out of the gates quickly. We needed to win the first 2 games. I thought we would win the first 2 games. I thought we would lose to Buffalo. Then we would bounce back, beat the Falcons. And I thought we could beat the Saints as well. Start off this season 4-1. Okay. Then I had us losing the next 2 games, Chiefs and Packers. That would get you to 4-3. Thought we had a chance to beat the Denver Broncos in week 8, heading into the bye week to get us to 5-3. That's how I thought the season would start. Okay. Now I said it wouldn't shock me if we lost to the Chargers in week 1. That's 4-4 at the bye week. And I said you couldn't be any worse than 3-5 if you wanted a shot at a season at the bye. I said, really, you would like to get to the bye at 4-4. So if you lose to Tampa Bay, you're 3-5, or 4-5 after that game, and then you have a chance to, really have a season after that. But we've put ourselves in a position to where that's not possible now. More likely than not. Again, it's still possible. We could beat Green Bay and then beat Denver and be 4-4, but we're not beating Green Bay. So at this point, we're going to be 2-5, and Denver becomes then a must-win in Week 8 to try to salvage the first half of the season. You lose to Denver, you're 2-6, this thing's over. That said, what's your new definition? Because I think, like I said, you have to recalibrate now. You have to figure out what is the definition of a successful season now that this team has shown you, more likely than not, what they are. Now, again, it could be subject to change. We know this NFL is a crazy, crazy league, and it's week to week sometimes. And sometimes teams get on a hot streak. Washington did it last year, won 4 games in a row when we thought they were dead. We had left them on their deathbed, on their deathbed, and we thought the season was over last year. Even though the division stunk, a lot of you had checked out and said, we can't win this division, we stink. And so at 2-7, no one could envision Washington having a chance to get back to 500 on the season at any point, let alone win 4 in a row and have a chance to get back to 500 at 7-7 after being 2-7. So things could change and change drastically. The schedule doesn't look like one that will allow you to change drastically in the favor of winning a bunch of games in a row. But again, we'll see what happens. We can't predict the future, but what we can do is recalibrate and talk about what a successful season now looks like for this team. Because again, if you're not on board with Ron's plan, and I've had people tell me, stop talking about Ron's plan, it's bullshit. Okay, that's your opinion, okay? I think that Ron's in year 2, and again, like I said before, the worst thing to happen to Ron, and I wanted to win, and I know Ron wouldn't trade, the NFC East crown. He wouldn't give that back just because the expectations were heightened this year. But I said the worst thing that could happen was that they won the division, and now he doesn't get to take his time in Ron's plan. Now Ron's plan has to be expedited by the fans' expectation because they won the division last year. Fans have selective memory. Forget the fact that they were 7-9, and I'm not talking about all of you. I'm talking about a nice sizable portion of you like to forget that this team was 7-9 last year, not 9-7, not 10-6, and so. The expectations, I thought, were going to be a little bit far-fetched, and they were, by some accounts. And it was going to put him in a position where he was going to feel a little bit more pressure than he should be feeling in year 2. And we talked about that already. Ron's feeling the pressure, but I think Ron has to do a good job of tuning out the noise and just continuing to stay the course, Look, it's nothing wrong with going par. Just go par for the course. There's nothing wrong with just staying even, okay? And finding a way to navigate. Now, again, I don't think Ron anticipated this defense being bad. None of us did. And I think that's right now the one thing that's really thrown a monkey wrench in his plan to this point is the fact that the defense wasn't supposed to be regressing. That was the one thing he was supposed to be able to. When he took this job, the one part of the team he thought he could fix, turn around, and have that be the linchpin until he figured out what the hell they were going to do at quarterback. Because I don't think he ever thought Dwayne Haskins was going to be the guy. Thought he was giving Dwayne an opportunity. Look, he's here already. The owner likes him. I'm going to give him a shot. The guy's got some talent. Let's see what he can do. But I don't think he actually thought Dwayne Haskins was the answer at the quarterback position when he took the job. So he knew that was going to be one of the positions he was going to have to fix. And the offense in general needed an overhaul. There wasn't a lot of talent when he got here on the offensive side of the football. And so he knew that was going to take some time, and it was going to be a process, that offensive side of the football. But in his mind, looking at the defense, knowing he had the second pick in the draft when he got here, knowing he was going to take Chase Young with that second pick, knowing they already had Montez Sweat, knowing Deron Payne was here, knowing Jonathan Allen was here, knowing that this team already had some pieces in place defensively. Cole Holcomb was a guy he probably liked when he took this job as well. He said to himself, I can fix this defense. I can work with this defense and get them up to speed quickly and have them be the reason we play competitive football while we try to fix the offensive side of the football and specifically find our quarterback of the future. The defense is going to give us a chance like they did last year. So I think he envisioned this year being much like last year. Hey, the defense is going to keep us in ball games, give us a chance. Meanwhile, the offense will be a work in progress. Whether it's Fitzpatrick, whether it's Taylor Heineke, the offense is going to be a work in progress. And obviously the injuries have derailed that, but the defense has been the real problem this season, the real issue, and really the reason that Ron's plan is taking a step backwards, so to speak. So I think Ron's thinking to himself, man, I wasn't planning on the defense being this bad, but, I mean, what are you going to do? At this point, all we can do is move forward, try to correct some of the mistakes that are being made. Some of these guys aren't going to be here next year, and they're not going to be here for the long haul. Landon Collins is a great example. John Bostic, another one, not going to be here for the long haul. These are guys that, Ron thought he could rely on this season as veteran presence in the locker room, guys that should be able to help contribute on the field. Well, Bostic's done for the season, and Landon Collins is probably going to be gone after the season's done. And you're going to see some new players in here. And so there'll still be turnover. This is an ongoing process, is Ron's plan. Even though some of you don't want to hear about Ron's plan and want me to stop talking about it. I'm not going to stop talking about it because it is Ron's plan and he's not going anywhere right now. And this is the guy that we brought in to do a job. And I want to give him an opportunity to do the job. Whether he fails or is successful is up to him and what he's done. The guys he's brought in the front office and the players that he'll bring in to try to help win games, that's all on him. But I'm going to give it a chance to see this thing through, to see what happens, because that's part of the problem here in Washington is that, and really, just overall in general, not just in Washington, I think there's this immediate, instant gratification that fans want. They want immediate results. And if they don't get it, changes have to be made, and swift changes have to be made. And it's hard to instill a culture. It's hard to change what has been a losing organization and franchise for the last 2 decades plus overnight. And you look, at the end of the day, if a mistake is made, you want to admit a mistake was made and move on. We don't know that Ron being here is a mistake. And some of you already want to cast that stone already and say, no, this is a mistake. We need to move on. I don't think that can be the topic right now because we're so early into this process. You have to allow this thing to work itself out. And so we'll see what happens. But for me, I thought we would be 4-2 right now. So because we're 2-4, the inverse of that, I have to recalibrate what I think this season is ultimately going to be. Now, I'm still optimistic. I still think that there could be a turnaround. There could be this, resurgence, if you will, with this football team. I look at the schedule, and I've already told you, there are winnable games, but I thought New Orleans was a winnable game, and it was, and we lost. And, someone said in the comment section the other day, yeah, there are winnable games on the schedule, but we don't win winnable games a lot of times. And there's some validity to that, and that's why we sit here at 2-4. The Chargers game was a winnable game. We lost it. The Giants game was a winnable game. We won it, but we almost lost it. The Falcons game was a winnable game. We won it, but we almost lost it. And then the Saints game was a winnable game. We lost it. And the Chiefs game, didn't think it would be, but it was a winnable game, and we lost that one as well. So when you lose winnable games consistently, it doesn't bode well for you getting hot and getting on a win streak and stringing some wins together to give you a chance to turn your season around. But I'm optimistic that the defense will continue to get better. They've shown, small increment signs of improvement the last 2 weeks. We'll see if they can continue to build upon that. And maybe, just maybe, they'll sneak a win in here somewhere where they have no business getting one. Be great to get one this week at Green Bay. Not happening. Be great to get one against Tampa after the bye week. Not happening. More likely than not. And so what you really have to tell yourself is you got to win the games that are there to be won. And that's Denver. That's Carolina. That's Seattle at home on a Monday night. Those are winnable football games. At Vegas is a winnable football game. Those are solid teams, but they're not world beaters. They're not the Bills. They're not the Green Bay Packers. They're not the Kansas City Chiefs. They're not the, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're not teams that we look at and say, hey, these are wrecking balls, and we're in the way and they're going to just plow over us. Those are winnable football games. But again, as someone brought up, we don't win the winnable games a lot of times. So, we'll see what happens. My recalibration now for what a successful season looks like is, hey, we got to turn it around in terms of, playing competitive football, winning some games, maybe win one that we had no business winning, and when we look up at the end of the season, we've won 7 games. If we can get to 7 was the floor for the season. I think now the floor is 6. So I've moved the floor down, and I think the ceiling is now 9. So the ceiling went down by 1, the floor went down by 1. Because at the beginning of the season, the floor was 7, the ceiling was 10 for me. Now the ceiling is 9, the floor is 6. And again, the reason the floor is not 5 or 4 is because we play in the NFC East. And we get the Eagles twice, and we get the Giants once more. Like, we're already at 2. Say we split with the Eagles and we sweep the Giants. They're due for a sweep. So we sweep the Giants, we split with the Eagles, or vice versa. We sweep the Eagles and the Giants get us at home in week 17. They beat us in New York in week 17. Whatever the case may be, that's still 4. That's still 3 more wins right there by itself. We're gonna beat somebody else, even if we don't beat Dallas at all, which I think we can get them one time. But we'll see what happens. Bottom line is there are winnable games on the schedule. 6 wins is the floor for me. 9 is the ceiling. It's going to take a hell of a lot of work because, again, we got 11 games left. In order to get to 9, you've got to win 7 out of your final 11 games. Does anybody see this team winning 7 out of their final 11 games? I can tell you right now, not me. Okay? Not me. But stranger things have happened. We'll see. So my recalibration is the floor is 6, the ceiling is 9, and a successful season for me is just get to 7. 7 was where you were at last year. 7 would be less, win percentage wise than it was last year because there is one more game. So technically you would not be better than you were a season ago, but it would feel like a lateral step, in some regards because of the start to the season and how poor we looked. If we find a way to win 5 out of our final 11 games and go 5-6 down the stretch, with a win against a good team, a playoff bound team, whether that's Dallas or, the Raiders or whomever, if it's a playoff team, you feel good. And I'll just bring up one more thing. Right now, our NFC record is actually really good. We haven't played many NFC games. We've played a ton of AFC games to start the season off, which if you're going to lose games, the best games to lose are the ones out of conference. Those don't hurt you as much. We've lost to the Chargers, the Bills, and the Chiefs. So we're 0-3 outside of the conference, but in the conference, we're 2-1. So right now, we're actually not doing that badly in conference. So if we can start winning some games, because that's one of the tiebreakers, you start it head-to-head, and then you start looking at common opponents and things of that nature. And then you get to your conference record, and right now, we're 2-1 in the NFC. Now we're going to play Green Bay here, and then we got a chance to play Denver. That's an AFC game, and then we got Tampa Bay. So it'll ratchet up on the NFC side of things here shortly. But, teams like the Eagles have lost a ton of NFC games, just more likely than not because they've played more of them than we have at this point. But it's just another positive thing to look at, a positive spin on what's been a disappointing start to the season. If we could get to 7, I'll view this as a success in terms of where we came from. It won't be a success from where we were before the season started. It'll be a disappointment. But being that we are here 6 games in, I know what this team looks like right now and what the expectation is moving forward. If you could some way find a way to 7 wins, I'd say, man, that was hard to see at one point when we were 2-4, with the defense having the worst scoring defense in the NFL. So, what's your new successful season, if that is even a thing? Maybe your successful season is, hey, we go 3-14 and we're in prime position to draft a quarterback. I don't deem that to be successful. That's not a good thing for the guys in the locker room. That's not a good thing for the coaching staff. But for you as a fan, that would be a good thing. Fine. I don't subscribe to that. I'm thinking more in terms of the team, the organization, what's a good thing. But you might be saying, I am talking about this organization and this team. They need a quarterback. So 3-14 is the best thing that they could do. We'll see what happens. But I don't subscribe to that theory. But let's get to in other news. And we had several people step to the podium. It's coordinator day. So we heard from Scott Turner. We heard from Jack Del Rio. Landon Collins stepped to the podium. We also heard from Chase Young. So a lot was said. Nothing really major came out of those. I will tell you this. Landon Collins says he's still a safety. Look, it's semantics at this point, right? Linebacker, safety, who gives a shit? Whatever your title is. Like, we see this all the time when guys are about to be up for a contract. And, this whole time they've been designated as a defensive end. But as soon as it's contract time, now the team is like, no, you're a linebacker. And he's like, wait a minute, no, I'm a defensive end. And they're like, no. We play a 3-4. You're an outside linebacker. And you're like, no, I get after the quarterback. I'm a defensive end, because if you're going to franchise tag a guy, the difference between a linebacker franchise tag and a defensive end franchise tag is massive. Okay, there's a big discrepancy between the two. And so that's when you get into semantics. What is Von Miller? Is he an outside linebacker or is he a defensive end? Von Miller will tell you, I'm whatever I need to be, but when it's time to get paid, now Von Miller's like, I'm a defensive end. Bottom line is, Landon Collins can call himself whatever he wants. He wants to be a safety. Remember, he refused to make the switch in the summer. He said, I'm a safety. He was adamant about that. He's still adamant about him being a safety. That's fine, dude. Who cares? The bottom line is, if you've been watching over the last few weeks, the man's been playing strictly in the box. Now, again, box work doesn't mean you're absolved from coverage duty, which a lot of you fail to understand. Like, Ron's like, hey, you're a downhill thumper. That's the way we see you. We need you to play linebacker, essentially. And Landon's like, look, I'll do whatever the team needs me to do. All right. But Landon's still going to be in coverage. I just want the coverage to be down around the line of scrimmage. Landon's still going to be, running man-to-man with tight ends. Landon's still going to be running with some backs out of the backfield. Landon's still going to be in coverage. Depending on what the look is, Landon might even be back deep, okay? Just depends on what kind of package they've gotten, what players they have on the field. They go heavy in the secondary, Landon may come back, it just all depends on, what the situation is. But at this point, I don't care if he considers himself a linebacker or a safety, if Ron calls him a linebacker or a safety. He's going to play wherever he plays. And right now, I think they're going to play him primarily within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, which is probably the best for Landon Collins. Really, more like 7 to 5 yards within the line of scrimmage. But whatever. He's going to be in the box. That's all that matters. And so we'll see what happens moving forward. Chase Young's like, yo, look, Landon, I love him in the box. He's a dog. He come downhill and he's a thumper. So, okay, whatever. At the end of the day, again, it's semantics. He's going to be more so a linebacker in the defense moving forward than he is a safety, but he'll be playing all over the football field like he has been. We'll see. I think they want to lessen the amount of mistakes on the back end. Landon was one of the primary culprits back there on the back end. Like you saw this past week, let's not act like we didn't have a deep ball get over our head, but it wasn't because of a defensive breakdown. It was just because somebody got beat. Mecole Hardman got behind one of our defensive backs. It wasn't like, oh my God, we had another blown coverage and the dude is open by 8 yards behind the defense. A lot of times it was Landon Collins. It was Bobby McCain once, Landon Collins twice, and it was William Jackson III once. Now, the William Jackson III one didn't result in a completion because there was pressure on Josh Allen, but the others all resulted in opportunities for touchdowns. One was dropped by the Giants. That was Landon Collins' fault. One was a touchdown against the Falcons. That was Bobby McCain's fault. And then the Saints 76-yarder, that was Landon Collins' fault. So you didn't see that last week, and Cam Curl was the guy that was back there a little bit more along with Bobby McCain. So we'll see what happens moving forward. Let's take a look at the injury report for week number 7 for both teams. And a little bit of positivity, man. We could use some. Let's take a look at this injury report and see what it has to offer. So as you can see, we got 4 DNPs. And I told you, I thought of the 11 guys on the list, I said maybe 5 of them might not play. So I got a surprise today seeing that Antonio Gibson was limited. I thought he was going to be out. I'm not going to lie to you. He was the 5th guy. So Sam Cosmi did not practice. He's not going to play this week with the ankle. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that. Curtis Samuel, I think they're going to try and give him a go again, but I wouldn't be shocked if he's out again. I would keep him out if I were them. Even if he thought he could go, I'd say, no, you're not going this week. If you feel really good, over the weekend and you feel good next week, then you can go against Denver, but you're not going against Green Bay. I don't think he's going to play. Brandon Sheriff won't play. He's got an ACL, MCL sprain. We know that's a 4-week injury, really, which is why I thought they would put him on IR, but they didn't because maybe they think he can come back in 3 weeks and not 4. We'll see. He's not going to play this week either, more likely than not. And then Cam Sims with the hamstring, I don't think he's going to play either. So those were the 5 that I thought were going to miss this game. But Antonio Gibson, pleasant surprise. He was limited today, which is a good sign that he may be able to go on Sunday. And I wasn't expecting him to be able to go. So that means that MRI that he received on Monday went well. Results must have come back negative, and everything must have looked good. So the bottom line is Cosmi, Samuel, Sheriff, and Sims are all likely to miss, but everybody else on this list probably is going to be able to give it a go. I told you Charles Leno Jr., he didn't really count. He was just getting rest on Wednesday. He was back in a full capacity on Thursday. William Jackson III was limited again today. The reports from Ashburn were that he had a sleeve on his knee. I think it was his left knee. But he still was a limited participant, so that's a good sign. De'Ami Brown limited, just like last week, and he played. I assume he's going to go. Jonathan Allen was a full participant. I don't think he's been a full participant in 2 weeks, but he's been limited every day. He's going to play. Jonathan Allen, I don't ever worry about him. Ricky Seals-Jones was a little interesting because that was a little nerve-wracking because we don't really have the depth at tight end to have him be out right now. But him being limited today with the quad, that's a good sign. We'll see what he does tomorrow. And then Terry McLaurin was back in a limited capacity. I wasn't worried about Terry either. Terry's another warrior. The man played with 2 sprained ankles last year and never really missed a beat. So Terry's a guy that I just expect him to play. You know, there are tough guys in this league that just find a way. Terry's one of those dudes. So you go to the Green Bay Packers side of things, and Darnell Savage was limited with the concussion. So more likely than not, he'll play. You know, if a guy's got a concussion and if they're not going to play, they're not going to practice. So the fact that he's limited means that he's working his way back. He should be able to go. Preston Smith probably going to miss with that oblique. So that's good news. You know, that takes away their other pass rusher because they're already without Zadarius Smith. Now you take away Preston Smith. You know, they don't have a lot of guys that can actually get after the quarterback. They're going to have to scheme up ways to get after the quarterback without your pure pass rushers off the edge. Other than that, there are 2 offensive linemen. I thought Savage might have missed the game, but limited means he'll more likely to not play. The 2 offensive linemen, Josh Myers and Dennis Kelly, that could be problematic for their offensive line. Both of those guys, if I'm not mistaken, are starters. So we'll see. Again, still a whole nother day of practice to go and walkthroughs. We'll see if anything changes. But if those guys don't practice tomorrow, more likely than not, they won't play. Any advantage that we can get, you know, whether it be on the offensive line or them not having their pass rushers for another week, is an advantage we'll take. We need all the help we can get. This feels similar to the Buffalo game on the road. This feels like a kamikaze mission that could get ugly early and often. So any help that we can get, we will graciously take it. And so there are some injuries of significance for the Packers, but we'll see if those hold up or not. So with that said, let's transition to our final segment of the show. And it's our first look at the Green Bay Packers. So this is a team that sits at 5-1 right now. I haven't been overly impressed with the Packers this year. I'm not going to lie to you. You know, when I look at the Packers season, it started off funky, obviously with the Aaron Rodgers saga all off season long. He doesn't play in the preseason. They show up, they get a mud hole stomped in them week 1 in Jacksonville versus the Saints, 38-3, and they haven't lost a game since. Now, you know, sometimes you get the luck of the draw, and the schedule makers do you a huge solid. I just tell you right now, if the Packers played the schedule they played last year, this year, they would not be 5-1 because they played a really tough schedule out of the gates last season and had to navigate their way through it. And they did that, and they came out the other side of that, you know, rough beginning of the schedule feeling good about themselves, and it really propelled them to the season that they ultimately had, getting to the NFC Championship, having the number 1 seed in the NFC and being the best team in the NFC pretty much the entire year. With that said, I felt like their schedule has been somewhat cupcake and soft. They've played teams that they've been able to handle, and it's allowed them to get their shit together, even though I don't know if they're all that great. But the one common thread there is they've got Aaron Rodgers, which makes them superior to us. I don't care if their defense is banged up and, you know, you can move the football on them. I don't care if their offense doesn't feel like it's got the same rhythm that it had a season ago. The fact of the matter is they've got number 12, and because they've got Aaron Rodgers under center, they're liable, you know, and very capable of scoring 40 any given week. So because of that fact, we're in trouble. And it's because of, you know, Brett Favre for many years and now Aaron Rodgers for the last decade plus. We haven't won in Lambeau in forever. I don't think I was born the last time this team won in Green Bay. I don't know. You can fact check me on that. We might have won there in like 1991 or something. I don't know. When the last time we won in Green Bay, I can just tell you it's a very, very long time. I know in my fandom, in watching football, I've never seen us win in Green Bay. I can tell you that. We've had some close calls. You know, the Sean Taylor should have had 5 interceptions game. you know, in back in, I want to say that was '06. I want to say it was '06. We almost won that game. Santana Moss had a big fumble at the end of that game, I remember, that really crippled us in that game. But I think we ended up losing that game something like 13-10 or something like that. We had every opportunity to win that game, and we let it slip through our fingers. Bottom line is, you're going to see a Packers team that, while they're not overly impressive to me and very beatable, we're just not in the state to beat them. So if we were to be competitive and have a chance in this game, would I be shocked? Nope, not at all. I said it feels like a kamikaze mission against Buffalo. I didn't say it is. Like, the Chiefs felt like kamikaze, there's no chance, and then we actually had a chance. The Bills, I never thought we had a chance. I thought it was going to get ugly, and it did, and it got ugly quickly, and I didn't expect it to get as ugly as it did, as quickly as it did, but I knew that one could get ugly, and it did. This has a chance to do that, but it could also be just like the Chiefs game, where we're in it, we got a shot. This Packers offense, like, there's something off with this football team, and I've been saying that all season long, but again, they've got Aaron Rodgers, and that should be good enough to get the job done against our poorest defense. So the first thing I'm going to say is that in order to have a chance, there are two guys in particular, and I've said this about multiple teams. I remember saying this about the Atlanta Falcons when we were playing them. Hey, you got to slow down Ridley, and you got to stop Cordero Patterson. He's been their best player all season long, and what happened? Cordero Patterson had a career-high 3 touchdown grabs against us and was shredding us in every way imaginable as a runner, as a pass catcher. And Calvin Ridley was open 18 million times, dropped 2 or 3 of them, drew 2 or 3 pass interference penalties, and still had about 5 or 6 or 7 catches for about a good 70-some-odd yards. So they're not doing the thing that I say they got to do, which is, hey, you know who the players are. You know who the guys are. They got dogs over there, and you know who their dogs are, and you know how they bark and how loud and how they can bite, and yet we seem to not be able to keep those dogs in check. We know who the players are for the Packers. They got 2 guys in particular. And if we aren't careful, they're tight end, because we've had tight end problems. Dawson Knox, was a problem for us against the Buffalo Bills. And, we've got tight end issues from time to time. Travis Kelce was an issue for us last week. He's an issue for everyone, though. But Robert Tonyan can become a issue for us if we're not careful. But the bottom line is they got 2 guys in particular. Aaron Jones, their running back, and Devontae Adams, their wide receiver. Those are the 2 guys. If you can't slow those 2 down, you don't have a chance. And I say pick your poison. Pick your poison. Figure out which one's going to hurt you. If you could slow both of those guys down, you don't have to be hurt by either one. Technically speaking, if you can slow the run game down with Aaron Jones, and you can find a way to take, it's sort of like playing against us, honestly. Slow down Antonio Gibson. Don't let him get free, make any big plays. Take Terry away, and what else do you have? Now, the difference is they got Aaron Rodgers. So he'll make Equanimous St. Brown, or he'll make, Marquez Valdez-Scantling look like a beast. Well, we got Taylor Heineke, and he's not taking, De'Ami Brown and turning De'Ami Brown into a bona fide stud for any given week. He's not taking Adam Humphries and turning him into a 122-yard receiver, which Adam Humphries has been open enough to be that kind of guy a number of games this season, and we're just not getting him the football. But, that said, that's the difference, is even if we take away those guys, Aaron Rodgers will find somebody else. He'll find Allen Lazard 4 times for 86 yards, including a 37-yard touchdown, and we'll still lose the game. But those are the 2 guys that we really have to key in on. Defensively for the Packers, they're banged up. They can be taken advantage of. They have our former defensive coordinator out there calling their plays. Like, I really feel like they're getting away with murder early in this season because of the schedule that they've played. They've played teams, Cincinnati, they could have lost that game very easily, but Detroit stinks. They got Chicago, they stink. They've had some very winnable games that have allowed them to right the ship. Had they been playing some tougher opponents, had they had, instead of playing, if they had Tampa Bay, early on their schedule, or if they had the Rams, or they had some teams, or Dallas or someone like that on their schedule early, that, you know, could give them problems, they might not be sitting here at 5-1, but they've had some teams that they can handle. You know, the toughest game outside of their first, you know, game of the season against the Saints that they lost has been Cincinnati. And they should have lost that game, you know? They could have easily won it, but they could have easily lost it too. I said all of that to say this. Joe Barry's their defensive coordinator. We all know he stinks. They don't have all of their defensive parts. You know, they can be taken advantage of. They're signing guys off the street, left and right. Anybody that comes available that has a name, Green Bay's all over them. Why? Because they've got issues defensively. They signed Jalen Smith. They just signed another player that was cut loose. I want to say it was a cornerback. Anybody that's getting cut loose that has a name, the Packers are like, we're all in. They'll be vulnerable. Can we take advantage is the question. We'll see. I'm not holding my breath. Neither should you. But everything is set up for us to go in there and compete and have a chance. Not win, but compete and have a chance. But, you know, with the way we've been playing and the mistakes that we make and the things that we do, more likely than not, we'll start off slow. They'll jump on top of us. And the thing that we've done this season, unlike last year in particular, is even when we fell down early in ball games, we fought, we made it competitive, and we gave ourselves a chance. When we fall down early in games this year, we get down by 2 scores. That's when, you know, woe is me, here we go again, starts to seep in. And next thing you know, it turns into an ass whooping. So we'll see what happens. That's our first look at the Green Bay Packers. We'll have our keys to the game tomorrow and talk about what it'll take for Washington to get a victory. But that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. I thank you guys for joining me here on Washington Football Nightly. I am a Washington fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Washington spirit will never die. Washington spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, hail to our beloved Washington Football team. Look forward to chopping it up with you guys tomorrow for Washington Football Nightly, where you'll get my prediction, score, and more. And also, if you are interested, LouieTeeNetwork podcast tomorrow and Thursday Night Football overtime tonight. Now, I'm not looking forward to the game, but we'll see what happens. Nonetheless, that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. Until next time, you guys, take care. Have a good one.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap. Hand to Riggins. Good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20. He's gone.